Good afternoon. My name is Josh Curtin. I'm the academic and career mentor here at Andrew College. So today we're going to talk about career services. One of the resources that we offer will be resume. So there's a lot of different ways to do resumes. There's different industry standards depending on the subject, the major. There's so many different factors, but I want to get students familiar with the basic skills of how to create one that works for them when they're applying for whether it's a general job or position, or how do they get their first job. I want to make sure they're prepared for that. So let's get started. All right. So there are there are 5 different parts to a resume that we're going to go over today. And each one has lots of different information. The first one here we're mentioning is the objective statement. The objective statement, this is one that doesn't necessarily have to be there anymore. It's kind of outdated, only because a lot of employees or employers know why you're applying for this position. Most of the time, I try to tell students, usually you want to put an objective statement if you're trying to change your career field, or if you're applying for a position that maybe it's far away and you're trying to explain why you're doing it, or you're changing careers. So the objective statement a lot of times is left out, but if it is there, it's usually 1 to 3 lines, and it's just a very at-glance picture of what you're trying to do. Seeking a job in higher education where I can utilize my resources in education, in the northeastern region, and you can go on to say I'm looking to relocate, and just explain kind of why, but don't go into too much detail. 1 to 3 lines. So things to include: your key qualifications, your skills or goals you could, what they need quickly. Sometimes it makes a good impression of what they're looking for, and then relatable to your goals. So here's an example: internship allowing me to utilize my knowledge and expertise in different areas. Is that a good example? It's probably not the best. As you can tell, still has a lot of questions: internship, knowledge, expertise. So a better one is, what position are you applying for? What are their main qualifications, your career goals, your professional identity, and ultimately, how are you going to be able to help the company? So we mentioned this fit for tailoring. So each resume really needs to be tailored to the organization to which you're applying. A lot of times people will send out blanket resumes and just try what they call phishing. You're just going to throw everything out there and hope you get a catch. Well, it's even harder to do so now, especially when most resumes are submitted online and there's scanning machines that will read your information and see if you're qualified. If not, they automatically throw you out of the pile. So in the old days, yes, it might have been the best idea for doing that, but ultimately, you want to make sure that if you're sending a resume to an industry, to an employer, to somebody that you are really interested in wanting the job, then I would make sure you tailor it to them specifically. When you're looking at the job duties and responsibilities and qualifications, that's where you're going to start tailoring in your resume to tweak what they're looking for. So as you're getting started to write your statement, you want to reflect on your overall qualifications and your career goals. In which ways are they typical and which ways are unique? So ultimately, you're trying to find out, why are you a good candidate? What skills and experiences you have that will make you the best candidate? And then what are some things that are unique about you? What's that stuff that's going to stand out to the employer when they are looking to hire new recruits? Is it that you're bilingual, that you can, you've worked on projects similar to what they're doing, whereas others may not? You've had a great internship experience and you had provided the experience of X, Y, and Z. And then ultimately, you want to research individual employers in your field. In what ways are the employers alike and which way they're different? So if you're looking for lots of different jobs in a similar industry, you want to make sure that you're tailoring to what they're looking for and what the industry standards are, and make sure that you can provide everything that is needed. So here's some activities that you could do. As you created a chart, you could have a page, on the left side, You have questions about you. What are your main qualifications, strengths, skills, and areas of expertise? What positions are you seeking or searching for? What are some goals that you would have as a professional while you were looking for that job, or you were there for a little bit? What ways would you want to become professionally experienced, or you're just looking for new qualifications? And what type of organization or work setting are you most interested in? These are things that you're considering that, if you're trying to get the job of your dreams, your career of your dreams, you want to make sure that you're looking for employers and positions that have the things that you want. You don't want to get into a job and then not be a good fit for it and then having to look for a new job later. So unfortunately, that's just something you need to look into on your own, and when you do your own assessments of what you want to do in your field or in your career or industry. And then questions about the employers. What are you looking for through an employer? Are you looking for good pay? Are you looking for good time off? Are you looking for flexibility to be able to go online or not? What positions are available in the job market? What are they titled? What are some goals of these organizations? And what kinds of organizations are now hiring? So you need to look at the industry trends, where they're what are they looking for? Will they need this job in the future? And that's a lot of times you also want to do that when you're just cold searching for positions, where you might be applying for a job that doesn't exist, but you think it should exist. Those are good questions to ask and be ready to have answers for those and preps on your resume. All right. So here's some instant objective statements you could put in and fill in. We're not going to do that, but that's certainly something you could do if you're looking for your position. And this PowerPoint will be available for all students as well as this video will be made ready and available for anyone who's willing and wanting to watch it. All right, so once again, the best statements emphasizes your qualification and goals and appeals to the employer's expectations. You will probably need to write more than one objective statement. Tailor each statement for the type of position that interests you, and for the best results, modify it to your employer as necessary. All right, and then you've got your contact information. So obviously, as an employer, they're going to want to be able to get a hold of you if they're interested in your resume and cover letter. So you need to make sure that you have all the information that is required for when you apply. Excuse me. It's usually located at the top of the page. A lot of times I'll tell our students that you don't necessarily have to put your street address if you don't want to. You can just put your city and state. Sometimes, unfortunately, some employers will look up where you live and make assumptions based on where you live. And so if you are not in a good neighborhood, or you're not in an area that's known very well, they may look at you and say, yeah, we don't want to hire anybody from that area. We've heard there's lots of problems, and therefore they'll look you up and then they'll pre-screen you and you won't receive. So ultimately, you don't have to give them that information until you're hired. So if you just have your name, your email address, and a phone number, and you're from Cuthbert, Georgia, that's all the information they need. Now, when they hire you, you'll have to give them the rest of the information. But for now, that's really all they need. So if you are a student, go ahead and put your student address, especially if you're applying for a job while you are a student. If you are a recent graduate and you are moving away from home, go ahead and put your new permanent address. If you're living back with your parents or your guardians, go ahead and put that address. Your email address is, if you have an Andrew College, go ahead and use it. If not, you can use your personal, but just make sure that it is professional. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, smart, whatever, young Padawan 5469 at Yahoo. They might understand that you like Star Wars and that you can be a Star Wars fan, but ultimately it's not a very professional. You should be your first name, your last name, digits, however it works out to the best in your advantage. If you have a LinkedIn, you can include your LinkedIn right there. There's nothing wrong with that. If you had a website you want to attract them to, as long as it's a good one and it's reputable, then yeah, sure. Most people don't have fax numbers, but if you had another means of contact, you can certainly do that. You could put your social media on there, but that's just depends on where you're applying to and who you're trying to impress, and make sure your social media is appropriate. And there's an example of what you could do. So moving beyond the typewriter, this is just really talking about making sure your layout is professional and it stands out. It doesn't need to be plain Jane, just all the same font. I mean, excuse me, you do want the same font, but all the same sizes, and you want it to stand out for others visually when it comes, and you want it to be presentable. And it should coordinate with your cover letter, and it should all kind of look the same. You don't want to have it too crazy and too wonky. All right, so there's different theories. So some people are like, you've got to use these 5 in order for it to be noticeable or to be attractive. And other people, no, I want to be unique, whatever. They're just saying these are the top 5 standards. Typically, you want to do between 10 and 12. You don't have to, but they're just saying these are the most notable and probably the most common. But getting too fancy could be distracting to the reader, so you just want to make sure that others have looked at your resume and they find that it is appealing visually and that it is professional. Ultimately, yeah, keep things left justified on your resume, and that way it just keeps a standard way of looking, and that it's clean on paper, it's clean to the eyes, it's visually appealing once again. All right, here's an example of how you could put your name, your campus address. Obviously the EDU, just because the way the PowerPoint is, it's not showing up correctly. You want it all to be on the same line. You don't want it to continue there. So that's a good, bad example of what not to do. You want it to be, like I said, clean, and it just looks professional, and you want to be noticeable. You could put graphics, just so your resume stands out and it's in different sections. That is entirely up to you, but once again, make sure it looks good. Yeah, your contact information should set the tone for the rest of your resume, and ultimately you want it to look similar to your cover letter. Once again, triple check for accuracy. One typo could cost you an interview. And then recommendation is 2 people. You want 2 people to look at your resume and your cover letter. I'm still noticing some things that I didn't see in my resume earlier that I'll go in and tweak. So it's important to make sure that you're constantly reviewing it and constantly changing and adding, as your resume will change as you gain experience, and as well as your job duties may change. All right, so the education statement. It's a section that emphasizes your educational background and your training. It's individualizing for an organization. Usually there's a major section for college students and recent graduates. So ultimately, a lot of times employers are just looking for a degree, and that's fine. You want to make sure you have it in the normal formatting. If sometimes they want it very specific, and you need to be able to provide that information. It needs to be on there. It needs to be in a good format, in the correct format for them to understand that you have done exactly what they need to be hired. So the education provides, you can put your coursework in there if there's notable courses that have something to do with the job. Don't just put random courses you took, because they're not gonna understand why you put them on there. But you want to do courses that will have some relevancy towards the position you're applying for, and also can provide background to the experience. So if you are a graphic designer, for instance, and they know you're going to take all these different graphic design courses, Adobe Creative, Photoshop, InDesign, could be whatever, but then you might do something with, management, and that, you took a business management course or whatever. It might show that you're a well-rounded individual. And then you might want to highlight some of those too, that you can also do things other than art, or what your degree is too. All right, so the question is, should the education be placed above or below your experience section? Should I put my education first, then experience, or experience, then education? Well, the answer is it depends. It depends on what is the strongest suit or the strongest thing that you have when applying for this job. So if you feel, man, I've got a lot more experience than my education, then put your experience. If you feel like your education really speaks for itself and you've got little experience, then put that on top. It's because the order to which the person viewing your resume when they're looking for hiring is, you want to make sure that it's attractive and it's stuff that stands out and they see first. So in the bare bones section of education, the school, the location of the school, the date of your graduation or expected graduation date, the degree or degrees you're going to earn, make sure they're accurate. So if you're getting an Associate of Arts in Science, or excuse me, Associate of Arts in Theater, then make sure that you have that's your degree. If you got an Associates of Science in biology, make sure that it stands out. You do not want to have the wrong degree. It makes you look like you don't understand what program you did and you graduated from. If you have a high GPA, you can certainly put that on there. If it's low, I would not recommend putting it on there. Employers want to see that you excel academically and that you stand out amongst other students. So recommendation, if you 3.5 or higher, probably keep it on there. If it's lower than that, it's questionable. I mean, it's really up to you, but a good rule of thumb, if you have a 3.5 or higher GPA when you graduate from college, then put it on there. We already talked about the other classes. So here's an example, AA in English. You can also write it out, Associate of Arts in English. Andrew College, Cuthbert, Georgia, graduation, December of 2019. So there's an example of what you can do to make sure that section is completed. What else can you include? You could include honors programs in there. You could do funding sources if you got a full scholarship or full ride, special projects, and then some skills. If you're lacking experience, you can certainly put skills that you received while you were in college. So there's a lot of flexibility with your resume. You just got to know where to tweak it and how do you make yourself stand out. And that's what my office can do, or I can help you with, and other professionals that will make sure that it looks good and it makes sense. You can't just put things out there or put them out there. All right, so these are kind of questions that you can ask yourself to start gathering your data, your information that you want to put on the resume. We're not going to go through those, but this is going to help start formulating your resume, because you can't just start creating it. You've got to kind of compile everything. A lot of times people forget what they did or what projects they did and what skills they may have gained. So it's important to just sit down and think about those kind of things. So also continue on with the creation of the resume to make yourself stand out. What are some things to use? Tables, parentheses, bullets, paragraphs, indenting. Like I said, you want it to stand out and you want it to look good and look professional. And so you don't want it to look boring. So are we done? Well, we're close. We're getting there. So education could look something like this. It's a lot in there. So if you had a heavy education and not so much experience, this may be a good option for you. The GPA is 3.4 I mean, I probably would have had 3.5, but they thought maybe they were close enough. On the experience section, this is really where you're going to start tailoring what your job duties or job qualifications for the job you're applying for, and your work experience or activities will start coming in place, because you want them to match up. You want, what are they looking for? What do I have or have done? And making sure you highlight that in the job duties of the positions or internships or job shadowing or things that you've done to demonstrate that you can do this job, or you have experience, or I can get the job done if provided the task. So you're providing information to persuade, right? To help persuade prospective employers that your experiences make you qualified for the job. You'll do it in the cover letter. You're going to do it again on your resume, which is why you need to tailor each resume towards the position you were applying for. Okay, let me say that again. You're tailoring each resume for the position you are applying for. Okay, so it's very important that when you look at the job description of a job, one you're interested in, and that you meet the qualifications, you can start matching up your job experiences, your training, your skills for that job to say, yes, I can do it, and here's why, and you're going to show it in your resume. And then ultimately, you want to put things that are going to help your resume stand out from others and the stack. And then you want here's where you're constructing your professional identity. Okay, experience entry basics. So you're going to put your company, the organization, the location, city, state, your position title. So this is where you have experience, you had a job, and here's what I've done. Okay. So you've got their basic information and then the description of responsibilities, right? Your responsibilities should include action verbs, and we're going to show you some of those. They're also going to show, you want it to sound professional and that you have intelligence in the area to which you were doing something. So I'm going to show you, there's a website called Resume Now. I'm going to show you how you can also help work on that here in a second. So where should you put this? Experience section be placed above, below, or education? Well, we've already kind of talked that. All right, so getting started. So here's another thing you can do if you wanted to pause it and start. What were your past experiences or activities? Things to think of where you could say you've meet qualifications through jobs, volunteering for certain positions, whether it's at church, student groups, anything for volunteer you're not getting paid, right? Civic duties. Appointments within positions, assistantships, internships, or any activity that involved the same duties or qualifications that might be needed the job that you're applying for. So if you were the president of the Student Government Association and they were looking for somebody who can, who's very task-oriented, who is good at project management, and who's good at working well with others. Well, as a student government president, you could probably show those three things through different activities, whether you had, pointing people to committees, you worked well with others, everybody looked to you as a leader and you were very helpful. So there's different ways you can show it, even if you were involved in a student organization, or you were the captain of the softball team, or you were, or you were the group leader in a very large group project for your business class. There's ways you can show that you've done stuff, even if you didn't have a full-time job or a part-time job. All right, so here's the activity continued. Tailor the content of the section. Circle each item that is related to your career goals for job descriptions, and then choose your experience circled. So basically, you're finding out what have you done and what are they looking for. It's that same concept, trying to match it up. All right, so use a variety of action words to describe your experiences. Answer the journalistic questions, the who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? So who did you work? What duties you perform? Where was your job fit into the organization? What goals were you trying to accomplish? So lots of different things you can start thinking about of how you can apply it to your resume and the job description. So the planned activities, what activities? The how, when, where, whom. So your description: planned arts, crafts activities, and exercises weekly for the physically challenged children, right? So that was one of your job duties, and that may match up to what your position or job you're looking for. And this is here making your descriptions parallel, right? So recorded OSHA regulated documents, making sure it matches the other. Material purchasing, expediting, conducting material purchasing, exiting. So they're just trying to see how it compares with the parallel. And trying to see if your experiences as a professional would, right? So if you answered the phone, yeah, you may have done that, but it doesn't sound professional. It doesn't sound like you really knew what your job. The better way of saying it, acted as a liaison between clients and legal staff, right? So that sounds a heck of a lot better than just said answered the phone or wiped tables, right? You created a healthy environment for customers and maintain a positive public image, right? Sounds so much better than wiped down tables. Remember to tailor your experience. Select the content that supports your qualifications and again matches the job description. Use professional wording integrating job-specific terms and verbs that are action-oriented, right? So they're looking for things that you can say that you've done that will make you sound smart and professional and that you know what they're looking for. Oops, I went too far. Other things to look for in creating your resume. You're trying to tailor it for your audience, right? I said this is part of that active resume, part of that constantly changing your resume for the job you want to be hired for. Use your appropriate headings when needed, right? To keep structure within your resume. Make sure you're including your required content that is in there. Organize your sections strategically. Like I said, whether do you put education or experience first or job skills and qualifications? There's lots of different ways you can do it. Developing your descriptions. It takes a little while, but you want to, like I said, you want to look at the job qualifications and see where you meet and how can you put those descriptions from the jobs that you've already done or the internships or the student organization involvement. Making sure the descriptions are parallel, that what you said you did matches up to what they're looking for. That's more or less what the parallel is looking for. All right, and then looking back at your resume, say look at your resume as if an employer was looking at your resume to hire you. Does it stand out? Does it look good? Is it what they're looking for? If it's not, then you need to tweak it. And then if you still don't understand or still don't know what to do, come find somebody who can help you. All right, getting closer to the end, the honors and activities section. This is where you could emphasize your participation in activities, honors, sports, volunteer work, whatever, to show that you're a well-rounded individual and that you didn't just go to class or you didn't just, work. You want to be able to show off that you're a well-rounded professional. So why bother doing it all? Well, for some, you may need it. If you didn't have any work experience and you couldn't come up with any other kind of experience within what you've done at college, well, one, you need to reflect and figure out how you need to get that experience. But two, you may need to put that section because it will help fill up your resume and look professional. It provides additional evidence of your qualifications. So if you were the president, vice president, held an office, or committee chairman or fundraiser chairman, you want to, if it makes you highlight and stand out, even though it may not be 100% related to the job, it still may make you look good. And ultimately, the employer is trying to get a sense of where were you or where are you coming from when you're trying to apply for this job. All right, and where can you place the honors and activity? Usually it's the last section or towards the bottom. It can be moved up depending, you can have it right after your education, if most of your involvement was through student activities. And then sometimes it's just omitted if you don't have enough room or you don't feel like you did a whole lot in there and it really makes you shine on your resume. All right, and then here's another activity you could do. Think about all the organizations or things you've been part of, your dates, make sure you have your dates, your involvement, who the sponsors, and ultimately you can show when you did it. And if there were tasks or things you completed, you can go ahead and list those on there as well. All right, we're not gonna go over that. All right, and here's an example of minimalistically and elaborate of your activities or your involvement section, right? So photography club or president. Here I did organization and membership. So you're almost treating it like it was a job, okay? And helping yourself stand out. Once again, that visual design, we've already talked about that. All right, and here's more of my information if you need it. I will be moving offices. I'll be moving to the administration building here in the next couple of weeks. So if you don't see me in the science building, I'm being moved over to the administration building. All right, so that is it for the PowerPoint. But I wanted to show you just some other stuff that may be beneficial for you as well. So here is here's an active resume for me. I've constantly updating it. I put a little personal touch in there with my background. I've got my career here as the academic career mentor projects or things that I'm working on. As I finish jobs and tasks and I've got more stuff to prove within assessment purposes, I can certainly change that and tweak that to the job I'm looking for. Here's a highlight of some of the stuff I did as the Director of Campus Life at Georgia Southwestern. And then once again, as the Associate Dean. My job skills include these are things that I've gained or areas of content that I have become skilled in based off of my positions that I was hired for. Here's more of my contact information. This is on, normally, like I said, you normally could put it up here on the top underneath my name, but I've got it over here as well. Excuse me. And then other activities that I'm working on. This is just giving you more explaining about me and what I do. And then if you ever get to take Strings Quest or you take your communication thing, you could put on there, all that kind of stuff if you want to. In this style of resume, they're not all the same. And then here is my education and training. So obviously I'm not in college, so therefore I don't have all the student organizations I was a part of, which I was a part of a lot. So having to update that and tweak that as well. And then here's just real quickly, here's my cover letter for a job that I applied for a while back. Notice how it's in a similar format and it matches my resume. That's the only reason I was going to show this one, that it does match my resume. All right, other things to look at. So Resume Now. So I talked about this website earlier. I wanted to show you a way to make yourself sound smart and an easy way, because a lot of times it's frustrating not knowing how to say your action words to do the job and experience to do it in a professional way. So I found this website called Resume Now. You can sign up for free. If you go through and you want them to create your resume, they're gonna charge you, of course. But if you were just trying to look up information based off of a position, so for instance, let's say you were trying to find out, I worked as we'll put cashier, it says it here, right? So if you put in cashier, and there's lots of different areas. But let's say you were a cashier team lead, okay? Hold on. I'm gonna have to type it in real quick. Only because I need to get to the skills section. Well, maybe it'll let me. Nope. Yeah. Education. Let's see if it'll let me just pass this. Let's continue. All right. Continue skills. Add skills. All right. So add here. So all right, there we go. All right. So as a cashier team lead, you start looking at what did I do as a possible cashier team lead? And then it shows you, I did customer relations. These are your skills. So this isn't actually the full job description. So I'm sorry. I need to go under experience. Cashier team lead. I said that. Here we go. Okay. So based off of me being a cashier team lead, here are 42 things we feel that are job skills or experiences that you had while you were a cashier team lead. If you did them, and that's what the other job is looking for, something similar, then add it. If it is not, don't make it up and put in there, because you should not be lying on your resume, even though there's a statistic out there that says that 60 or 70% of your resume is actually lied and made up. But you're going to be better than that. So if you applied proper procedures when ringing up scalable items to maintain accurate pricing, boom, put it on there. If you maximize sales potential by pairing, storing, rotating, merchandising products, absolutely. Promoted specific items, that might help with your marketing piece. How many do you want to put in there? Well, it depends on how much experience you have. If this was your only job, put maybe 3 to 5. If you had several jobs, you might want to only put 3. You're trying to fill up the page, and you're trying to keep your resume at 1 page. But ultimately, you want remember, you're trying to attract what you've done to the job that you're applying for. So if they're looking for this stuff, then make sure you include it in there. You may have collaborated with senior managers to optimize teams with department transfers and promotions for skilled workers. And then maybe you supervised more than, and then you'd put it in here. I don't know if it'll let me do it in this one. We'll see. Yeah, it does. 6 cashiers and associates. So, and what you're going to happen, it's already put it in the format. All you have to do is hit copy and paste, Control C, Control V, copy that and put it in your resume. It's going to keep that format and you're done. You don't have to do anymore. So I really like Resume Now. If you're wanting them to create the resume for you, you can certainly pay the money to do that for that program. But it's free if you just do it by yourself. So, if you look at another option, let's say you were a respiratory therapist, right? What do they do? There's 6 things, right? Conducted cardiopulmonary resuscitation and maintenance of airways, interact with patients, family members, physician to coordinate and inform regarding patient care, maintained and updated blank through knowledge through blank and blank. So this one's more, you get the tailoring in what you did. So obviously the position or your field more than I do. So you would fill in that. So anything you can show in numbers or tasks or whatever, it's probably in your benefit too to add it here as well. Great website, resumenow.com. Create an account and use it to your benefit. Okay. All right, what else? Those action verbs I talked about, if you didn't want to do the resume now, you could create your own within your experience, you know, overhauled things, rehabilitated, if you're clerical, you generated, implemented. So this is just another idea of using the resume now and using it to the action verbs that you feel appropriate, okay? And then lastly, no, that's not it. Here we go. All right, so some samples of college resumes. So here's somebody, it's very basic. It's in a different kind of format, which is fine. Is it professional? Yes, it's very easily readable. The only thing I don't like in their course highlights 1 and 2 is not on the same line. That's the only thing I might have changed. And then their work, obviously they had very little work experience or they just didn't include it here. So this is probably more of a template than an example. All right, here's an example for a student who didn't have related work experience. It's all left justified. Obviously, you would not include examples, student with no work experience on that resume. But they're showing you your objective, your education, your coursework, what did you do for your senior project or capstone project, your work history if you had any, and then your computer skills and honors and activities. One thing that's not on your resume anymore is references upon request. It's understood that you are going to provide references if asked or if needed. So you don't have to put it on there anymore. So if anybody questions you why you don't have it on there, it's out of date. It's no longer needed. And like I said, I have all of these here for you if you needed examples. I talked a little bit about scannable resumes very briefly earlier. It's a way a lot of your larger employers are starting to go and weed out applicants who don't meet the necessarily requirements or qualifications for positions. So they're telling you with this example here that as a resume that's scanned into their system, they're pulling out the specific information that's needed to find out if you are qualified. So your address, all that stuff gets typed into a database. Employment, they want to know where you're employed, your experiences. Notice it says type on separate lines because they're trying to make sure you meet the qualifications of the position. If not, then if you don't meet the qualifications, more than likely you're automatically going to get rejected and thrown out. If you do, then you're going to move on to an actual human or the next phase in the process. Okay. So yeah, so there's lots of different examples. If you still need help or you just wanted to work alone, if you come see me or if you got one of these, the career guide also has a whole section on resume writing. It starts on page 9 and goes, I don't know if you can see that. It starts on page 9 and goes all the way to page 15, with some of it are what employers say, and then other stuff is the style and goals in the different sections. So, and some samples there. The last thing I have for you, I help Miss Amanda Knight's speech class. They do cover letter and resume writing and mock interview. I created a rubric to find out if your resume is ready and appropriate for an employer to look at. So I've got all the different sections here. So if you are wanting me to see if you are resume ready, I would use this rubric and tell you if you're ready or not, if you needed some tweaking and where you at in that process. So, well, that's it about basics for resume writing. If you have any other questions or you want to schedule a meeting with me, you can go to my Calendly link. It's calendly.com/Josh Curtin. You can set up a meeting with me one-on-one. It can be Zoom, face-to-face, however you need to. We can discuss your cover letter, resume, or mock interview, or anything career development-wise, and make sure that you're prepared for when you want to reach out and apply for your first job, apply for a job in general, but whatever I can do to be assistance. I hope you've enjoyed this little workshop here, and hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you soon.